Watch The Atheist Experience live Sundays at 4:30 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/ytaxp and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callaxp.
It's time to get sexy on Secular Sexuality.
Hello and welcome to Secular Sexuality, the ACA show most likely to freak out squares. I'm Nate. My co-host tonight is the Ray to our guests, Princess Leia. Welcome back, Arden of Eden.
Hey, everyone.
I'm joined tonight by the undisputed princess of the atheist community of Discord, my friend, Stephanie Helms. We're glad to have you.
Hey, how you doing? ACD, hi, how you doing?
Tonight, everyone, we're delving into the evolution of the trans experience in our culture over the years. So you should call in and give us your stories at 512-991-9242 or tiny.cc/call-sex because the show is coming now.
Everyone's favorite segment before we get kicked off. Arden, what's turning you on this week?
I gotta say, I'll be careful how I do it because I don't want to get our team in trouble at all. But I love my job. If you don't know what I do, I'm an adult content person. I just love my job. That's all I'm gonna say. Love my job.
It's Thursday, so you are off the hook. You are officially off the leash and ready to growl.
I'm growling. How about
Stephanie?
you?
Stephanie, how about you?
Well, I got two things.
Okay.
On I think it's Friday. I'm kind of psyched to see the next episode of the Foundation series on Apple TV. Really, I'm kind of a sci-fi fan, and I'm really psyched to see how they continue to portray that story. They've done some very interesting things, and including a little bit of changing the gender roles of the characters in the book. So that's rather interesting. And second of all, I love my job too. I'm a professional sailor, and the last race of the season is coming up on Saturday. So I've got a back-to-back excitement.
Oh, that's
Wow.
awesome.
We're in contention for the season championship, so that's why I'm kind of pumped for that.
Oh man.
Wow. Break a leg.
Yeah.
Well, my selection for this week is something new to me. It is silicone-based lube. So I've been a water-based lube guy for many years. I've just kind of went with whatever was at the drugstore at the time, and my partner and I decided to order a new product.
Tell me it's gun oil.
It's not gun oil, but that was I looked at like a top 10 list of the best lubricants out there, and we went with Backdoor. It's a European maker, but it's silicone. Oh, what do we got there?
Oh. Is that coconut oil? Nice.
Yeah.
Gets the job done. Does.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm just like, oh my, like, where have you been all my life? Like, it's not sticky. You don't have to reapply. It just works, as Todd Howard of Bethesda would say. It just works.
Silicone-based lube runs for miles.
Right?
Yeah. Oh,
right?
It's the good stuff. Can confirm.
How am I only learning about this now? So, folks, for all your gliding needs, I highly recommend silicone-based lube. Amazing stuff.
Co-signed.
So, before we get into this, I just want to acknowledge for everyone that I am a cisgendered gay man on an episode about the transgender experience. So tonight I'm just going to try to kind of facilitate the conversation between you two. Even though, you know, we all have a stripe on the same flag, tonight it's all about you two. So let's get into this. Stephanie, when did you when did you start to realize that you were different inside that out, that your assigned gender didn't match how you felt inside?
As soon as I had any consciousness of what an internal feeling of gender was, really. I mean, one could almost say I came out when I was 3.5. When I was 2.5, I rather severely burned my left foot, and one of the exercises that I had to do in physical therapy to make sure that things stayed loose was pick up marbles off the floor. And so my mom would throw out marbles on the floor, and I'd pick them up and, you know, put them in a cup. And at one point in the exercise, she said, "Good boy." And I said, "No, girl." So a 3.5-year-old doesn't really have the language, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have the language to talk about, well, you know, the internal feeling of blah, 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 blah. Or trans in 1957 was not even on anybody's radar screen. So it's like almost since forever. And I wish that that expression had gone a little bit better, but people didn't have a framework to even attempt to understand that any more than I did as a 3.5-year-old. So that was a bit of a shock to the system, I think, for my mom. And being a preacher's kid, she didn't share that particular thing with my dad, the minister guy. But she did share it with her sister. And as I in later in life, in conversations with my cousin, her you know, my mom's sister's kid, said, "Right. Oh yeah, we all knew what was going on. We didn't understand it, but we did. We were all aware of that stuff." So I guess I hope that answers the question. Like from the get.
Yeah. It's kind of like they didn't really have the language for it, maybe, or hadn't been exposed to it, but already could tell that, you know, you were different and you were not comfortable in that assigned gender, for sure. How did that affect your childhood, like your early years? What I know you talked about this just a little bit, but tell us more about the zeitgeist back then towards the trans community.
Well, I was born in 1953 when Christine Jorgensen hit the front pages of the New York Times, who was the first prominent person to undergo genital reconstruction surgery, or GRS. So there was that stuff in the media. There was, from the point of view of gender nonconforming people, you'd see Uncle Milty cross-dressing. Milton Berle was a feature of his show. It was sort of like nobody really knew what to do with it. What is the deal? I mean, in psychotherapy, in the psychiatric community, in the health community, there was a guy named Harry Benjamin who was active at that time, but he was pretty much the only person in those days taking cognizance of the fact that this part of the human condition existed, and had a compassionate approach to treatment, such as it was. So, I mean, I guess that was the cultural context, and of course, at that time, homosexuality was still illegal in many places in the world.
Right.
Gender nonconformity just wasn't it just wasn't a thing, and that lasted through the 50s and the 60s until later 60s. And there were some cultural shifts, but trans people were always kind of on the outs. And since there was no awareness and broader cultural awareness, I was raised the impossible child. I was impossible. I couldn't be. It was effectively a form of conversion therapy, even though it wasn't conversion therapy. There just weren't any options. So I was trained to really to hate a part of myself, which wasn't the best thing.
Yeah, I think that's I think a really common trans experience. I mean, I was born in 95, and I would say that that was a large part of how I was able to repress my gender identity for so long, was that I was taught to hate it, that those parts of me were bad and they were meant to be suppressed and kept deep down because they were bad. So that definitely is I think I'm sure there are even still families today where that kind of mindset is alive and well. Hopefully less so, but still in some sense,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it seems like every day I see something in the news about some trans kid being kicked out, for coming out to their family, and it's almost always religious reasons. And you came from a pretty religious family. I think a lot of our audience can relate to that. I can relate to that. How did that affect your faith, Stephanie?
Oh, I found a way of eliding the going to Sunday school stuff, because I came to the conclusion pretty early, like when I was 11 or 12, that God wouldn't, if there couldn't possibly be a God who would play this kind of trick on me. I just didn't, it was just sort of no, don't believe it. I mean, I had tried all the prayers, right? I'd asked to, please make me whole, and there was just no answer. So it was a sort of wandering away from faith, and I'd go around as soon as my folks would let me. I would say, I'm going to go. Grew up in Boston. So I would walk out, and I did actually do this. I went around to various churches just to see what other how other sermons were preached, how other people outside of the Methodist Church conducted themselves in a religious sense. And I found my greatest inspiration was just simply walking around on the Boston Common and walking in the public gardens and just sort of breathing in and breathing out. So yeah, I didn't hold on to faith very long, but I made a good show of it. I learned a lot about various religions, and so was able to participate in those Sunday dinner discussions with my mom and dad. I mean, my growing up was sort of you get up in the morning and you sit at the breakfast table and read the Upper Room, which was a religious publication, and that you go with the daily Bible verse and stuff. So yeah, but I didn't buy it. I was pretty done with it early on.
Arden, were you raised religious?
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. our denomination was kind of complicated. We were technically a Church of God, but we practiced like Pentecostals. It was very like the Bible is the literal word of God. So yeah, I definitely got a heavy indoctrination, but just like Stephanie, I can't tell you how many times I lied awake, like sad at night, praying like, please let me wake up in the morning. I remember even asking once, like, if you let me wake up tomorrow as a girl, live my whole life as a girl, and then when I die, I come back to this moment, like I will be okay. Just let me, like, please let me be a girl. And those unanswered prayers were they spoke pretty loudly. I think that was definitely a part of the deconversion process.
When I was
Wow.
6, I left a note under my pillow for the tooth fairy, saying, "Please let me be a girl." And so I related that story to my shrink, and of course, this is what I got from after GRS from my psychiatrist. She sent this, and it's like, oh man, it's the coolest thing. See the teeth? It's little tooth necklace, all that stuff.
That's so cute. That's really sweet.
That is really sweet. That's like super thoughtful. Wow. What sort of, like, you mentioned your therapist. What sort of terminology did they use back then to describe it? Like what language was going around? Did you have other resources? And
until I stuffed all the trans stuff way deep down. I did get married. I didn't have kids. We didn't have kids. My ex is still my best friend. The reason that we didn't stay together was because she didn't want to be a lesbian, and I can understand that. And it's like she always saw that part of me, but when the shit hit the fan, it was like, I just can't do it. And I totally got that. We parted amicably. The partnership broke apart amicably. And as I say, she's still my best friend. So, yeah, I transitioned. I started transitioning at the age of 44. It took me that long to get to the point where it was something I could do. So that's like 23 years ago. I'm 67 now. So, but I have no idea what would have happened had the possibilities that exist for kids today been available to me now.
Right.
My life would have been hugely different, I'm sure. But I don't have any real regrets, and what I have a tremendous amount of joy that I've had the past 23 years to live, like, without any pretense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really hard place to get to. I think because so many people really get, and I completely understand why, get really caught up on all those years that they missed, and I think there's so much beauty in being able to appreciate that, like, the privileges that we do have, and that you've gotten those years to be yourself and to live wholly. That's really precious, and I think it's good to put the focus on that and really raise that up, because I think that is invaluable. And even though maybe it was put off longer than it would have been if you grew up like today or something, I'm always reminded of, like, how early I got to transition and what a blessing that is. Blessing, excuse the word blessing. I mean that metaphorically, chat. I know we're in an atheist show. Metaphor. But I think about just like people who, in centuries before lived and died, never getting to understand themselves or why they felt the way they did, or maybe hiding their feelings and expressing it in secret ways or something. And definitely it's really fantastic that we are able to be ourselves at all. Small things, silver linings.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that things maybe possibly are kind of getting better by the sound of things. What would you say to teenage Stephanie if you could talk to her for 2 minutes?
Oh, I have done that in my mind. I've done
I'm
that
sure.
a
I'm
lot.
sure. Well,
Uh,
for the rest of our audience who might be, younger, trans, what advice would you give to them?
what I would have said, what I would say to 17, 18, 19-year-old me,
Mhm.
or even younger, is it's going to be okay. It's just that. It's going to be okay.
Hmm.
You'll figure this out. Because she
No.
did. That little girl figured it out. Took her a long time to grow up, but she finally did.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I definitely think the pre-transition stage can be full of so much darkness. I know that was the worst times in my life when I'm reflecting on that. It was miserable for a lot of it. And while I understand that it's not for everyone, I think yeah, that's a great message to reflect on, that like it does, as corny as it sounds, it does get better, with time. Yeah.
And you transitioned fairly early, you said, Arden? Or earlier.
Yeah. My story's a little weird. I transitioned actually really young. I first came out at about 14, but went through some pretty traumatic experiences in high school and detransitioned because I was like, if this whole experience is just going to be me getting harassed and bullied, and I'm gonna get death
Right.
threats, and every like romantic partner I have is gonna tell me they wish they could be with me, but it's too hard. And I was like, well, fuck it. I will just stuff it down even deeper. And I repressed it again for another like 5 or 6 years. So I have like, I feel like I consider my coming out, my real coming into myself, was at about 22, 23. So about 3 or 4 years ago now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's such a common, like, I hear you both say that, stuff it down, jam it down. And I hope that content like this sort of helps the audience to say, to see that's not healthy, and that there are options, and that, you need to make it match before you'll be happy. Because you both seem like you're much happier after getting it fixed.
No
No,
comparison.
Yeah.
speaking to the agonies of puberty, I will say that was a particularly difficult time. My 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 Twitter feed little blurb goes, epigenetic chromosomal anomaly. It's like I did not enter male puberty until quite late, and in like 7th and 8th grade, guys would come up to me. I was somewhat overweight, and I also had small breasts. There was some breast development there, and so guys would come up to me and grab me by the tits and twist, like on a daily basis. And so I sort of I really withdrew from interactions. Previously, most of my friends were girls, and it was just fucking torture. And I didn't really come back out into society, among my peers, until like junior in high school, where found I found music and arts and drama and stuff like that. And that was good training for putting on the act. But
I suppose it
Yeah.
would be, yeah.
Yep. I was always
not-
into drama too. That makes sense.
That
was a
does
tough
make
time.
sense. Yeah.
Wicked tough time. But
What
saved a
was
lot
your
of money on electrolysis later though.
but what was your experience like with healthcare providers? Were they supportive? Did you have to go through a few? Tell us about that a little bit.
When I did actually, I started medical transition sort of on the down low, because I'd come to a mental understanding that I couldn't do this anymore. So I started cross-sex hormones in 1998, and I was acquiring them through not necessarily direct means, shall we say. But I finally got to the point where it's like, well, I got to get real about this, and I contacted a therapist who is very, very good, who is like, she had a practice, strangely enough, in the house across the street from the house I grew up in.
Huh.
Wow.
So I would sit for therapy sessions, look down the hill, and there's my house, my childhood home. It was really, really one of these weird coincidences in life. So anyway, I started seeing her, and I went to my physician, who I'd known for ages, and I took a box of estradiol patches and a bottle of spironolactone into the office with him. I'd made the appointment. I need to talk to you for why reasons. I walk into his office with it and show him this and show him that, and said, I need these. Will you work with me? And to my great delight, he said yes. So that's how, so we were embarking on a journey together. He to this day, I don't believe he has another trans patient, but he was incredibly compassionate and incredibly supportive. I mean, he basically said, "You're going to do this anyway, aren't you?" I go, "Damn straight I am." He goes, "Then let's do it right." So that was a good part. I was very lucky, very, very lucky, because that's not the way that stuff worked back then. It was not, there was no self ID. The Harry S. Benjamin standards of care, the DSM-3 at the time was like, it was considered a mental disorder to be trans, and it wasn't even the separation of transness, qua transness, and gender dysphoria hadn't happened. Like in the DSM-5, gender dysphoria is the condition that gets treated.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget what the code was, although I should remember, because it's always caused problems with insurance companies and whatnot. But one of the things about being trans is you have to know a whole lot more than most of the doctors you meet about your condition, or about and means of treatment, what's actually going to work and make you feel better. So I don't know. So I've been very lucky with long story short, I've been very lucky with medical professionals. I had the therapist I mentioned was great. I had another therapist, a psychiatrist, closer to home up here, in Maine, and she was terrific. Jean Schrang, my surgeon, was terrific. I've been really, really lucky.
That's so awesome to hear. There are definitely so many horror stories about, people being like told like, oh, you're not wearing the right clothes. Like, especially back in the day of the Harry Benjamin standards, if you didn't dress the right way or, accessorize the right way, sometimes you could get denied access to healthcare. And it's like, wait, hold on. My aunt wears exclusively flannel and like does not dress very feminine, but I have to dress like that in order to get healthcare. Like that's insane. So that's amazing that you had healthcare providers who were clearly understanding of at least what you needed. And I love that notion of like, well, look, you're gonna take this medicine anyway, so I may as well be there to support you to make sure that we do it right and that you are healthy and not putting your safety at risk by doing these things. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a good doc. He's still my doctor.
That's incredible. That's so great. I love hearing stories like that.
That's a real professional. That's somebody who should be in the medical field and clearly is good at what he does. That's nice to hear.
I mean, he didn't know it. He didn't know anything about it. I along with the 2 prescriptions, I walked in with a sheath of papers saying, "Well, if we can work together, here's the stuff." Because I knew that was going to be his next question. It's like, what? I'll need to do some research. Okay, start here.
Yeah, for sure. That's so crazy. It's the patient educating the doctor when it comes to this stuff. Did you have that experience too, Arden?
Oh, all the time. All the time. I can't tell you how many times I've had to explain to a doctor like anything from like the efficacy of transition to like the potential risks. Like I might know more about the potential risks and side effects of HRT than they do. Or like I've had sometimes when I'm talking about getting like gender affirming surgeries, doctors who will be like, oh, well, let's be careful about that because, you don't want to like regret it or whatever. And I'm like, trust me, I know exactly what procedures I'm looking to get. I know exactly why I need them. I looked at like the regret rates and all of these things. I know what I'm doing, but there's a lot of unfortunately, just uneducated professionals still in the field. I think that's becoming less and less of a problem, but a lot of these things are still issues that we see all the time in the trans community. I mean, and even if you have educated professionals, you have situations like in the UK where if you want to go through the NHS, you're going to have to wait, 4 to 6 years to access treatment, like, which is just absurd and should be like considered a like, I don't know, malpractice or something. I don't know how law works in the UK. That's not the point, but just that like, a lot of people think trans care is like a cosmetic thing. Like I just want to feel pretty. I just want to look pretty. And it's really not. It's about, bringing an alignment between 2 things that for most people are already aligned. They don't really have to do a lot of work to make those things happen.
Right.
That's
fair.
One of my first lines when talking to people was, "It's not about the clothes.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with clothes. Not for me." And as it turns out, you sort of get there a little bit. It's kind of fun to play. It's fun to play with gender. It's fun to grow into. It's fun to feel like you can grow into your own style. It's like learning how to dance again, and being joyous about it. It's quite a trip. But I guess what I'm trying to convey is a lot of us feel our gender identity quite deeply.
Yeah.
And don't know how to express it. We learn how to express it as we grow into it, to the extent that it's allowed to be expressed. And the conflict between the dissonance between our deeply felt identity, and the permission to express it is the thing that causes so many people so much pain and angst and trouble.
Yeah.
Which
Well
is,
said.
when society becomes a little bit more accepting about gender fluidity, it gets better. But for those of us who are trans and gender fluid, there's a little bit more. There might be a little bit more work to do, but everybody's path is different.
Yeah.
For sure. It looks like apparently I'm on a call-in show.
What?
And apparently,
Since when?
yeah, apparently we have some folks that want to talk to us. Arden? Why
Yeah,
don't
we
you
do.
pick one? Yeah, we do. I'm so excited. These are good calls. Let's get to it.
Yeah, all of these look really interesting. How about we start
Mhm.
with Q.Mulative? Pronouns are he, him in Canada. Q.Mulative, you are live on Secular Sexuality. What's going on?
Hello, I'm glad to be here, and I feel honored to speak to both of you.
Awesome.
So, did you get my topic before? Is my topic displayed anywhere there, or should I just?
We did, but
Yeah,
it would be
just
great
wait.
if you would let the audience know. And I don't know if Stephanie has call-in studio up, so probably
I don't.
fill us in.
All right. So I've got an anti-LGBTQ voting and gender-critical friend who says I can't be anti-gay. I'm bi, and we're kind of on a break on the friendship, and I'm wondering if I should just make it a clean break or try to fix this bridge, when we start talking again.
Wow.
And and like, I guess if it were just that, if that were just the situation, then I would kind of make it a clean break, because if that's all that defines her, that she's anti-gay, and or that she says she's anti-gay, but she keeps acting and voting and arguing against the LGBTQ progress, then I'd say she's not worth my time and my mental health. But I mean, the things that have me on the fence are that she does reach out to me, which makes her the clingy one out of us two, and I'm always afraid of being the clingy one, so I don't reach out to my friends that much. Mm-hmm. And she tells me that people that are like me tend to get along better with her, or tolerate her or something. And compared to her and her other friends, I'm more leftist. And when I think about that kind of situation, I don't want all my friends to be conservatives, so I don't want to be in that situation that she's in.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's interesting. This kind of makes me think of something that we think about a lot when we're on other shows that I've been on, where it's how do you best handle trans folks? Is it good to have this warm conversation where you allow them the opportunity to be wrong and don't judge them for that? Kind of a street epistemology approach. What do you believe and why? Kind of a thoughtful asking. And I think that can reach some people. But I do also think there are instances where, as hard as it is and as harsh as it may seem, where you do kind of have to harshly, and no, I'm not saying you should publicly drag your friend, but in some instances, you should. I think you do need to make a clear statement to them, and maybe if anyone asks about what's going on, because I think we need to. It's kind of when people are outwardly horrifically racist, of course we have the subtle things that happen, but I feel sometimes people are more ready to condemn outward transphobia or outward racism, but we don't do those things for the more subtle aspects of it, and I think that's warranted sometimes. I think we need to. I don't know if shame is always an effective way to control behavior, but I think it's okay to kind of make people feel bad for being hateful people. You shouldn't feel comfortable being an outward bigot in society. I think if we as a society have agreed that our values are against that, I think it's okay to be what the fuck? You said what? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
That's not okay.
I'm just not I'm not the kind of person that's comfortable straight up doing that Pavlovian what the fuck as soon as you say something that's bigoted or racist or something. And I think that seems to be what she reacts well to. She wants people to call her out like that, and maybe I'm just not the person to do that.
It could be, but I mean, you might be the only person that can do that, right? If your friend is advocating for policies that would prevent you from being able to adopt a child, or in the case of tonight's subject, have access to healthcare, these are things that really matter. Like, there are certain things to me that are deal breakers. As far as a friendship goes, there are some things I can overlook. If you like pineapple on pizza, that's fine. If some things you can get over. Some things are so critical to a person's worldview. Like, if you honestly believe, say, a gay couple shouldn't be able to adopt children, you are denying me things that affect my well-being. And if you would advocate for that, then you're not my friend. Like, you don't really care about what's best for me. So I can't really tell you where to draw the line. But what I would say would be a good starting point would be, if you try to engage her and think you're making progress, maybe it's salvageable. If you try to engage her in the way of like, hey, this is something that affects my life and I'm your friend. Like, if that doesn't make it real for you, I don't know what can. And I would just try to gauge the level of progress that you're making, because life is too short to spin your wheels with assholes.
Yeah, and I get that impression. Like, when I try to, I have tried to address this topic directly with her. In particular, she'll often have this one sort of jab and retreat kind of thing that she does. Whenever the topic, in the creative, I've noticed when I get into game development communities, that's kind of my thing. I'll meet a lot of aces, and it just kind of comes up in our everyday conversation. I guess in the topic of marketing, for example, that sex sells. Someone in the community will either come out as ace, or will address that person, the ace person that we know, directly about that, when to talk about how the sex sells marketing works or doesn't. And when I'm talking with that one friend, she'll immediately quip that she doesn't believe, something to the tune of, she doesn't believe aces exist. She says it's a mental disease. And then when we want to pursue that with her with street epistemology, she'll say she will not be convinced, to sort of shut down that discussion and change the topic. But she still wants to do that sort of jab and retreat whenever ace or LGBTQ topics come up, or trans topics in particular as well, because she's very critical about someone being trans when they come out.
And you say
she believes in the trans trender thing.
And you say this person is bi?
Yeah, whenever she'll say she can't be anti-gay. She doesn't say LGBTQ. She uses the term alphabet brigade when she refers to the non-straight communities. But she said, I can't be anti-gay, I'm bi.
Yeah, you can. You can be on the spectrum and still be a jerk. That's entirely possible. Stephanie,
there's a whole lot to unpack there, and I don't really have any better advice than either Arden or Nate have given you. So I don't know as I could be in a relationship without pointing out the inherent hypocrisy in the things that she seems to believe. So.
Yeah. I wish I could tell you just everything, but I'm I want to respect the other caller's time as well, but I appreciate the advice that you're giving me. And you can kind of see why I'm on the fence about this whole thing, because I feel like she has been changing over time, over the time that I've known her, but I don't know if it's worth my mental investment and time investment to put up with the walls that she's putting up and to keep trying to pursue the topic.
you are never obligated, Q.Mulative, to be someone's gateway out of being a bigot. Like, if you are willing to and you have the mental time and energy, that's great. I think that's how the world changes. But like, absolutely do not sacrifice like your well-being to walk this person out of being a jackass. Like, if they're gonna be if they're gonna be doing this jab and retreat thing, that's not worth the time and energy. Like, for that kind of person, I would say, hey, if you're willing to have an actual conversation, I'll sit here with you. But we've had multiple callers on Transatlantic who do the same exact thing, and those are the callers that I banned, because I'm not willing to have a conversation with someone who's not willing to have a conversation. I will talk to someone who will call me the worst names if they're willing to honestly engage in the conversation. But the second that piece is removed, I have no interest. Absolutely zero. So I do what you will with that.
All right.
Cool.
Q.Mulative, thank you for calling. And if you want to call back on another episode to give us an update as to how it's going, I would be interested to hear from you again. But yeah, we do have tons of callers on the line. Yes. So I do want to thank you for calling in. Arden, is there anything else you wanted to say?
Thank you for having me.
Nope. That's it. Awesome. Thanks, Q.Mulative. Have a nice day.
You too.
Bye.
Ciao.
All right. Are we?
I think we need to do another. We've got the switchboards are lighting up.
Cool. Did we want to run our weekly promo before we hop on to the next caller real quick? I think it's the time, right?
I do love the highlight reel.
Yeah. Let's see it. If you missed out on last week, huh?
Yes. Let's see what else.
This is a great opportunity to give yourself a big old orgasm. Or, better yet, give somebody else one.
Okay.
There's the crew camp. Look at that crew. Look at that crew. And the cats. The cats are important to the crew's success. Cats are important to the crew's success. Ask any YouTuber.
Before we get into this, can we just acknowledge that Kenneth Copeland's preacher voice is basically Hulk Hogan?
It is. Right? And he's so smart.
Hulk Hogan.
Hello, and welcome to Talk Heathen, the show that takes a long, deep sniff from the sweaty armpit of theism and gags mildly before dousing it with a deodorant of logic and reason.
Gosh, it almost makes it look like I say a lot. But,
those make me so happy.
I liked it better when I was the highlight. So I just want to say, Shannon Q, we miss you, and vagina.
Damn, Nate, you were all over last week.
Oh, I know. Any week that I'm on and I don't make the highlight reel, I'm like, must do better next time. Must try harder to be funny. Must be entertaining.
That's my goal.
Right?
My goal.
Yeah, awesome. Are we gonna do one more before we take the rest of the interview? Or are we gonna next part?
I think we have time for one more. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. How about we take number 4, Jason in Texas. Pronouns are he, him. You are on Secular Sexuality. What's going on?
Hey, y'all. How y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
What's your topic?
I'm sorry, there's a delay. So my question is, about a year ago, I started watching some porn that I wasn't used to watching, and through a little bit of therapy and counseling, I realized I'm bi. So I work in an industry out here in Texas that's not really conducive to that type of lifestyle, I guess. And you got a lot of guys who are real open about being Trump supporters and anti-gay. It's I'm working on oil and gas. And, I've recently said some things about people saying some stuff, and I want to be careful because I don't want to lose my job. But also at the same time, I don't want to sit there and think people, let them think it's okay to espouse a hate speech to me. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of torn on where to take a stand. And also, I'm also trying to, sorry, I'm getting a call coming in, but I'm also trying to figure out like how open I should be just in my general group of people, and like really how important it is, because I mean, I'm not transitioning. I'm not going through like a real, a full physical change with hormones, and this is, I don't know how important it is that I'm like, hey guys, I'm kind of into dudes too now, or kind of always have been. So I just want to get y'all's opinion on that.
Oh, Jason, you called in on the right night. I too work in a industry that is not exactly friendly to folks on the spectrum most times. I'm a tradesperson. I work in construction, and I struggled with that for a long time, whether I wanted to be open about it or whether I could, because you can hear I don't come off as someone who might be on the spectrum. I pretty much sound straight, quote unquote. But it got to the point where I wanted to be visible, because there are more people like you and me that work in trades, that work in oil and gas, that do jobs that haven't historically been associated with LGBTQ plus people. And I got to the point where I was just like, I need to be a voice for this, because I can handle the flack that I get. I wear a hot pink hard hat to work. I have a pride flag on it. I get more friendly nods and, chuckles than I do dirty looks or comments. And I'm okay with that. I can handle the comments. I can handle the bad shit. The question is, can you? And if you can't, if it's not healthy for you, if you don't feel ready to tackle that, then don't. There's no rule that says that you have to.
Yeah, I think
I like the point of.
Or go ahead.
No, please. I'd love to hear what you have to say, please.
Well, I was just gonna say, yeah. Generally speaking, when we talk about like coming out, I think a rule of thumb is always that if your safety is ever at risk, like don't. You don't have to be. You don't have to tell anyone about what's going on with you ever. Like, it's nice to have a life where you can be honest and authentic, but if your safety is at risk, or like your job or anything, don't. There's also an issue of like, if they fire you over you coming out as being gay, I think you might have a legal case on your hands. But like, I think just think of how many people who are maybe they aren't LGBT, but they're so sick of those dudes making those fucking jokes and making those comments who work with you, or maybe like Nate said, other people who are LGBT who if you do have the stuff in you to do that, I think you could be like definitely a beacon of light for a lot of those people to be like, wow, okay, I am not totally isolated here. That is like, I think sometimes just knowing there's one other person in the room like that can go so fucking far to keep you from being like in a really dark place.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a really great perspective, and luckily, I'm kind of a big motherfucker with cauliflower ears and tattoos, so and I found myself like what you said, like standing up. Some dude said some real dumb shit the other day. I'm boss man on jobs. He said some dumb shit about hate crimes, and one of my best friends is trans, and she recently got shot at, and there's video of it. And so I just started freaking out on him, and I told him, I go, for all you know, I like to slap myself in the face with black cock. You need to watch who you're fucking talking to. And made a comment, and then I've been finding myself slipping a little more and more around friends, and it's just kind of like bleh, things are coming out, and I can't stop it. So it's again like, oh please step in, please.
I think it's fair to say you can pick your battles. I think it's fair to say that you can evaluate a situation and see if it's necessary to make a difference, to really step out and put your foot down when people start talking trash. Because I think that's just I think that's only human. I think that I've had occasion to do that, where being in a conversation and somebody starts talking trash about trans people, and a very recent occasion, somebody started doing that in a restaurant, and we were in a group, and it's going on and on and on about this stuff, and I just turned to him and said, "Have you ever met a trans person?" And the guy goes, "No." I said, "Well, you have now." You could. I mean, but you can pick those battles. You don't feel obligated to do it. I felt comfortable in that circumstance to be able to do that. But that's my 2 cents.
And Jason, I've done the same thing
like
too.
that.
When people are saying awful shit, and I'm like, "How many gay people do you actually know?" And they're like, "None." And I'm like, "Really? Really? You don't know any? I think you do know one."
Well, yeah.
And then they're just like,
yeah. Well, yeah. These guys, they mistake me for something that I'm not.
Exactly.
And it's interesting. It's interesting because I get into these conversations with these guys. So I'm an inspector, so I go place to place, and they're always asking me these questions. And I get in these long conversations. And one dude just recently told me, "Well, my daughter, she just came out as bi, and she's 15, and she's dating a trans guy." And I go, "That's fucking awesome." And he's all, I go, "Yeah, man, what a fucking acid trip. Now you got something new. Good job, you're a good dad, and your daughter came out to you." And he's all, oh, okay. And, because it's weird. It's just like it's leaking out. And I'm like, oh, God, maybe I just need to shut the fuck up. But I keep finding I'm just vomiting this shit out. So I don't know.
This is what I'm saying, right? Like, it's so important for people like us to be visible because we shatter these preconceptions about what people on the spectrum are. And so that's why it was important for me to do it. And I think you kind of know what you need to do, man.
Sounds like it.
Well,
It sounds like you kind of do.
I do appreciate
but
Well, thank you. I do appreciate y'all talking, and luckily I get to speak to Stephanie on the Discord, so it's a blessing to see her on here. So I really appreciate y'all doing. Yeah.
Oh, right? Isn't she awesome? It's so cool to be on a show with her finally. Arden's cool too, I guess.
And Arden. It's a cool website, and I really appreciate everything everybody does, and y'all fucking rule. So thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you too, Jason. Have a nice night.
All right, bye, guys.
All right.
Oh,
So
man.
we're gonna keep on cruising.
Yeah, we're like an hour into the show, and we should probably get to our second segment. But hold on, folks, because we're gonna take a couple of more calls. But before that, we want to talk about some of the cultural changes that we've seen in society. Specifically, I want to ask Stephanie, like, what changes have you seen? Because you've been around for a long, long time, and I want to know, like, what have you observed? Have you seen change, and what changes? What have you seen?
I think we touched on a lot of this in the previous segment. I think we touched on I'm spacing on.
Is it getting better for trans folks?
Yeah, it is. I mean, the media, popular media, not necessarily not the news media, but popular media has gone from a place of parody to a place of embracing with some degree of compassion trans subjects. As I mentioned to you guys earlier in the pre-show, I'm probably the only trans person on the planet that hasn't watched any of the Matrix. But but you're seeing things like on the CW, Supergirl, for example, Natalie Maines. She's a Maine kid. She was actually the focus of a lawsuit at her high school, allowing her to use the proper facilities. I mean, she's a tremendous actress, and they wrote the character of Dreamer with her input, and so things like this, where you have a bit more of a compassionate view. Jen Richards in the reboot of Tales of the City, playing the character of young Anna Madrigal and filling in the backstory there, was so well done, and it was played by a trans actress. So in the media landscape, in the entertainment landscape, it's no longer a situation where we're parodied, where we're caricatured. There's far more compassion and more involvement in trans people playing trans characters, which I think is tremendously important from the role model aspect of young trans people saying, "Hey, it's possible to realize a life, and have the aspirations that every cis child has, the possibility of realizing those aspirations as who you are." I think that's super important, and I do think that is a major change. As far as the news media is concerned, as far as politics is concerned, it's ebbed and flowed, and right now it's on an ebb, to be honest. I mean, in 27 states, there are bills right now being introduced that will take away my rights, that will take away the rights of trans kids. The reason I ripped off the mask in 2018, I just sort of I had a certain amount of passing privilege, and hid behind, didn't talk about trans issues on social media at all. The reason I ripped off the mask and said, "Hey, I need to change my display name on Twitter and declare this stuff and tell people on Facebook about this stuff," is because the Trump administration wanted to, the HHS wanted to enshrine into administrative law that sex is immutable and assigned at birth. And what that means in as practical matter is that you can't change your passport.
Yeah,
you can't change your birth certificate. You can't. And when people start talking about identity politics, I don't know how much more identity politics you can get when you're requiring identity documents to say that you are something that you are not. And that's where I started getting a little bit off the wall, and I used every contact and every means in my power to express that to people who could make a difference. And thankfully, that policy was still on the table when the prior administration left, but they left without ever implementing that. And for that, I'm very happy.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to hear you talk about how like the growth in some of like the TV entertainment media, because I remember like for me when I was growing up as a kid, the representation that I had of trans people was like Jerry Springer, like oh, my boyfriend just found out I'm really a man and now we're gonna fight and people are gonna like cheer it on.
And it's always framed that way.
Yeah.
My boyfriend found out I'm really a man.
Yep.
Or, it was maybe the person involved didn't say that, but that was exactly how it was billed on the shows. I mean, I think one of the I was just about to say one of the queer things about portrayal in the media is is the titillation factor of how peculiar is this? Why would anyone try to? Why would anyone want to do this? And it's just sort of it's out of the ken of most folk to imagine this part of the human experience, and that is because it's not particularly common, and it's just not something people come across. So it makes it's the stuff of parody, and it's the stuff of, and it's also, to be honest, the whole gender bending notion of stuff is something that captures people's imagination, and you know it sells.
Yeah, for sure. It kind of, I know we touched on this like a little bit in the last segment too, about like how there used to be the Harry Benjamin standards, but one thing I think is I'd really like to hear your take on is how like the science has changed, kind of maybe a little bit of a deeper dive into that, like our understanding scientifically of transness. I think that is really curious. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
You know, I'm a sailmaker, not a physician, or a psychologist. I
Sure.
make sails for a living. It's like I sail sailboats, race sailboats for a living. I don't claim to have an in-depth knowledge of stuff, but I think that the medical profession has looked more carefully at the actual science and the actual experiences of trans people, and has come to understand that we're pretty diverse, and you know, it's not just simply based on gender role. It's more based on gender identity than gender role. And back in the day, it was far more based on well, if you want to be the opposite sex, as they would have it then, and I'm sort of relying on old style thinking, then you must do X, Y, Z and conform to the gender role. And part of the diagnostic was, well, what kind of toys did you play with? What kind of, you know, who are your friends? Who's this? And it was viewed from the overarching perspective of mostly cis het white guys.
Yeah,
they're the worst.
You know, it was patriarchal from the get. And with a singularly focused lens that, well, you can't possibly be. You'll need to prove that you can that you can play the role. But as I said way back, it was never about the clothes, and it's not ever about the clothes necessarily. For people like me, sometimes it is, but it's not it never was for me. I grew into appreciating the
right,
you know, the expression.
It's not about the clothes in a way that separates you from like the way a cis woman cares about clothes, or might care about clothes, or might want to play with her gender expression. Right, exactly.
Right. Yeah. It's just about who you are. It's not, you know, you play around with stuff until you figure out how to dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are running a little behind, and we're like, we have 20 minutes to go. We have a couple of callers that I think we should really get to, because they're like, these are going to be great calls, and I feel like we want to talk to folks. But before we get to those calls, one last question: what can cisgendered white men like me do to help be an ally to your cause? How can we help you?
Oppose those bills. Oppose those bills. Oppose societal legal restrictions on our ability to be ourselves. Make your voices heard. Don't tell me there's so many people that told me back in 2018 we have your back.
Right.
No, you don't, and no, you still don't, because these things are still getting passed in Tennessee, in Arkansas, in Texas. There was even a bill in my own state that had no chance of getting through the legislature, but nevertheless, there's these things are being introduced. They're being introduced for a reason. They're being introduced because of what I was talking about, that it's titillating. It scares people. Trans, the very idea of it strikes people in their souls in a very visceral way. And until they know a trans person, until they have had an opportunity to see that, hey, these people are real people, and by passing this sort of legislation is going to hurt them, it's very difficult for us to make the case. So what cis people can do, especially what y'all can do, is really support us. Don't just talk it, walk it.
Well said. Well said.
Absolutely.
Well, Arden, do we want to talk to some more folks?
Yeah, we've got a couple more callers on the line, so let's see if we can. Sorry to callers that we're running behind, so we're gonna have to speed through these calls probably a little faster than normal. But we've got Cal, pronouns are he/him, in Utah. Cal, what's going on?
Hello. I was just, I don't really usually get the chance to talk to many trans people, and I was just wanting to ask about how, I get misgendered every day at work, and I was wondering if you deal with that and how, I guess.
I have. So I work from home now, but I did at the beginning of my transition work from a normal job where I did get misgendered all the time by my coworkers. And I think, a big part of that was some of them knew me before transition. So there was like a conflicting memory thing. I tend to be slightly more combative. I wasn't gonna fight them on it. Like I wasn't gonna wrestle them to the ground when they misgendered me. But a simple interjecting her, if they'll be like, oh, he said blah blah blah, I'd be like her, just that. There were some times too where I think it doesn't hurt to be a little sarcastic. I feel like if people know you can play with it a little bit, sometimes they'll be more willing to hear you out. So there's always also the opportunity to misgender them back. Not that I want to endorse misgendering, but if it's a cis person and they're calling you the absolute wrong pronoun, you're like, oh yes, thank you, ma'am, to a big burly cis man, that can be kind of a little way to be I'm not mad at you, clearly I'm playing along, but I'm trying to point out to you that you're kind of being a fucking asshole without noticing it. So those are my thoughts. Stephanie, do you have any other ideas?
You're all pretty much the same. If somebody misgenders me, it's which in my day-to-day life, in my regular interactions, happens very, very infrequently. I just basically go. It's he said, no, she, and let it go. As I said, it's been 23 years, so it happens occasionally, but very, very rarely. I've with people that that I've been acquainted with for longer, the people that continued to misgender me after 10 years and said it's going to take some time. That's when I got a little bit hot under the collar and said, look, how much fucking time do you need? Yeah. You've known me as me for longer than you knew me as whoever you perceive that person to be before we even engage in this. So how much fucking time do you need? So it depends really upon. I'm not going to be. I'm not going to be abrasive or nasty with, say, long lost cousins. Like this past summer, I saw some cousins came through that I hadn't seen in many years, and they occasionally slip, but only very occasionally. And I just did that gentle no, and it was always I'm sorry, and usually people are cool with it. But if people are going to be assholes about it, as Arden said, hey, you're being an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm mostly misgendered by customers for some reason, and I feel like I should just like not let it bother me, but it does.
Yeah, sure.
It may be worth in that situation being like, oh wait, are you talking to me? You said whatever, like however they were centering, you'd be like, oh, you said this like she or he or whatever, and that just confused me. Maybe it's worth like kind of playing a little stupid to kind of like get them to be like, oh shit, did I get this wrong? Did I misread this person? Like maybe that'll be a good way to kind of slip it in or something. With that said, Cal, I wish we could stay on the line with you. We do have to, I think, try to bust out one more call really quick, so we'll probably let you go. But I hope that was helpful. And I hope you have a wonderful night. And good luck with those. Thanks, you too.
Cal can also join the atheist community of Discord to talk to more folks. Yes, absolutely, Cal.
All right, are we going to try to get through all of this real quick?
I think we oughta. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All
Screw
right, so
segment 3.
this caller I have actually spoken to before. This is Steven in Washington. Pronouns are he, him. We are tight on time, Steven, but I'd love to hear what's going on.
Oh, nothing much. I just saw you guys were talking on this specific topic and figured I could probably contribute to the conversation. And, if you had any specific questions, Arden, my story and my family story. So if there's anything that you thought that I would specifically have some insight on, I'm all ears. But other than that, I'll probably just wish you guys a good rest of the show. And
I don't know if we need to go through your whole story, but I do think like maybe just kind of touching on really quickly, like just kind of how deeply, like last time I spoke to Steven, I cried. Steven's a fantastic parent who is really doing the best to support his kid. And maybe the little last diatribe about seeing the pain that your kid went through and how that like showed you how important trans rights were. If you want to just do like a quick little run on that, I think that it would be great to share that with this audience.
Sure. So I think the part that I really wanted to hit home for anybody that could hear it is basically, especially for kids that are going through this kind of shit, it's not a matter of just, these kids don't know what they really want and they just are having an uncomfortable puberty and they're taking this way too extreme and they're too young to make these decisions. None of these decisions are made singularly. They're all under the strict supervision of adults that care for these children and for the doctors that those adults are consulting. It's all safe. It's all appropriate treatment. It's all very heavily regulated, in some cases far too regulated. And it's not something that if a kid decides to go and transition, that if it ends up not working out for them, it's not something that's going to change their life forever in almost every case. In my own personal experience, my daughter was nearly fully transitioned and then detransitioned in a matter of months. And we've never really looked back since. So it's It's something that is the responsible thing to do. It is safe, and I think that everybody that needs it should be given the ability to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the fact that your kid went through the exact experience that these legislators are trying to deny kids access to any healthcare over, the potential of going through it and regretting, and that your kid is still happy and healthy, and that you still are here advocating for those kids' rights to access to healthcare. That is the thing I love about you, Stephen, and what you've brought to the calls that I've had with you before. I think you singularly debunk the worst anti-trans propaganda.
Yes.
I want to thank you. I want to thank you so much for calling in and sharing that part of your story. It's so important. It's so important.
Yeah. I wish we had more time, Stephen, to let you get through the whole thing, because I think this audience could really use it. But maybe you can call back and share it with them another night when we're a little more on schedule.
Sure, it's no problem. I appreciate everything you guys do. This show and Arden's show in particular were invaluable resources for me. Kind of trying to understand this and doing my best to do the right thing. So, keep up the good fight.
Thanks, Stephen.
Aww.
All right. Yeah, sorry, we had to get to Stephen. Steven's amazing.
I mean,
I cried too.
The world, I've got a little bit of mist in my eye, and it's not because of dust, but the world needs more dads like that guy, I think.
Agreed.
Hell yeah. Well, we did have a third segment that was going to get into, not at all controversial topic. There's no controversy over trans people in sports, is there? It's pretty cut and dry, right? Right? Oh wait, yeah, no, there totally is. There totally is.
I just like to make a brief comment on it. We don't need to get into great detail.
Yes.
But I am, in fact, a professional athlete. My World Federation considers me so. I'm a professional sailor. I am a sailboat racing official. And I will tell you, for what it's worth, my competitors accept me. My governing body accepts me. I comply with all of the rules, and it's been that way from the get-go. In the sport of sailing, I've been on 2 public panels talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We think sport is a human right, and we need to do everything we can, especially in the sport of sailing, to get people out there, get people competing, get kids out there competing. Doesn't matter. I don't need to get into it. I don't need to get into any other sport. I don't need to have any discussions about it, about the niceties of particularly trans women in sports. But I will talk strongly about supporting women's athletics. And that is, if you want to do it, watch it, pay for it, support the women who do it, and get off your couch and stop criticizing things you don't know anything about.
Yeah. If I could plug, I think a great resource really quick, not mine at all. I think that was fantastic, Stephanie. And there is a YouTuber, Jangles Science Lad. He's got a degree in kinesiology, and he does a full breakdown of trans women in sports. And although I get where you're joking at, Nate, I think this matter isn't really that controversial. Trans women have been allowed in the Olympics since 2004 or something like that, and one person has qualified. The notion that we are destroying sports.
Team.
Yeah,
even on a national team, the only other person that's ever been on a national team is Chris Mosher, a trans guy.
Right. Yeah, this image of these like hulking men in like Party City wigs, like destroying the like sacredness of women's sports is a laughable joke. And this matter is really largely settled, it seems like, in the like professional athletic circles. So I'm not in those, but it seems like they've kind of got their system settled. And Stephanie is. So I think this matter shouldn't be controversial, despite the fact that it may be.
I couldn't agree more.
Got calls?
Sorry, go ahead, Steph.
You got calls?
No. The floor is yours if you want to say anything in closing.
No, I don't want to. I want to take calls. I don't want to sit here and pontificate over that kind of stuff.
But we want to hear you pontificate. It was awesome.
No.
It was so good.
I've stood and delivered. That's all I got.
Well, I was going to talk about the odious Abigail Schreier, but I don't think we have time to open that can of worms tonight. But something to look at Stephanie's face.
I feel it too.
Oh man,
I feel it too.
You know what? Something tells me, Stephanie,
it's just all trans panic, and
it is.
You know,
it totally
enough's
is.
enough.
It's literally in the title of her book, but. Stephanie, something tells me this will not be your last appearance on Secular Sexuality. I mean, if we have such a good conversation that we can't even get to the third segment because we're having such a good talk and we get so many calls, like, you are coming back, and maybe next time you'll actually get Christy, who knows what he's talking about. So that'll be great.
Maybe next time I won't be so long-winded.
No, that's fine.
No, it's great. We love that here.
Yeah. It was awesome. It was a great show, and you guys had a great conversation, and I am quite humbled to have been allowed to be a part of it. So Arden, do you want to take us out?
So first of all, obviously we want to shout out Stephanie's links. We've got a little info slide for Stephanie. Yeah, definitely go check out all of her stuff.
That was a good day. That was a very good day. You notice all the boats behind us?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Right. The race.
Yeah, that was a good day.
Then if you have liked this show or you want to catch any of the other shows on the the ACA network, you can go to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts, your one-stop shop for all of your ACA content right there in one place. Then if you are interested in the conversation and you want to get a little more, we also have our Facebook Secular Sexuality fan group. So you can go there and hop in on all the sexy secular conversations happening. And if you want to be a part of the Discord, where we'll be stopping in after for a little Q&A session, you can go to tiny.cc/ACD Discord. And lastly, we've got, almost lastly, sorry. We also have our tiny.cc/merch ACA, where you can get all of your ACA merch as well. You get all the mugs, the shirts, and all the cool stuff to represent how much you love secularness and sex. Anyway, also one real last thing. Can we show the crew? Can we show the hardworking, amazing people who make this show possible? Seriously, we just show up and talk. These people are pulling all the levers and shit in the back. They cannot have the show without them. But with that, everybody, this has been Secular Sexuality. Stephanie, thank you so much for being here.
And
it was so much fun.
Yeah.
This was a good time. And before we go, I'd just like to remind everyone out there that regardless of your favorite body part, why don't you pick one, give yourself a big old orgasm, or better yet, give somebody else one.
Give somebody else.
Watch The Atheist Experience live Sundays at 4:30 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTAXP and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callaxp.